Welcome to Leaping Larry's Revolutionary Reading Theatre.
Yes, welcome everyone to Leaping Larry's
Revolutionary
Reading Theatre. Today we are continuing our read of Foundations of Leninism. Chapter 8, The Party.
Cookie.
I'm in a mood today, Sue, don't judge me. Okay, I'll pin it up here in case you all want a link to it. Just remember that I am on Chapter 8. Click on it. You just gotta scroll down here, and we're on this one right here. The Party. Let's start the party. In the pre-revolutionary period, the period of more or less peaceful development, when the parties of the Second International were the predominant force in the working class movement, and parliamentary forms of struggle were regarded as the principal forms under these conditions, the party neither had nor could have had the great and decisive importance which it acquired afterwards, under conditions of open revolutionary clashes. Defending the Second International against attacks made upon it, Trotsky says that the parties of the Second International are an instrument of peace and not of war, and that for this very reason they were powerless to take any important steps during the war, during the period of revolutionary action by the proletariat. That is quite true, but what does it mean? It means that the parties of the Second International are unfit for the revolutionary struggle of the proletariat, that they are not militant parties of the proletariat, leading the workers to power, but election machines, adapted for parliamentary elections and parliamentary struggle. This, in fact, explains why in the days when the opportunists of the Second International were in ascendancy, it was not the party, but its parliamentary group that was the chief political organization of the proletariat. It is well known that the party at that time was really an appendage and subsidiary of the parliamentary group. It scarcely needs proof that under such conditions, and with such a party at the helm, there could be no question of preparing the proletariat for revolution. Welcome in, Kamikaze. But matters have changed radically at the dawn of the new period. And the new period is one of open class collisions, of revolutionary action by the proletariat, of proletarian revolution, a period when forces are being directly mustered for the overthrow of imperialism and the seizure of power by the proletariat. In this period, the proletariat is confronted with new tasks. The task of reorganizing all party work on new revolutionary lines, of educating the workers in the spirit of revolutionary struggle for power, of preparing and moving up reserves, of establishing an alliance with the proletarians of neighboring countries, of establishing firm ties with the liberation movement in the colonies and dependent countries, etc., etc. To think that these tasks can be performed by the old social democratic parties, brought up as they were in the peaceful conditions of parliamentarism, is to doom oneself to hopeless despair, to inevitable defeat. If, with such tasks to shoulder, the proletariat remained under the leadership of the old parties, it would be completely unarmed. It scarcely needs proof that the proletariat could not consent to such a state of affairs. Hence, the necessity for a new party, a militant party, a revolutionary party, one bold enough to lead the proletarians in the struggle for power, sufficiently experienced to find its bearing amidst complex conditions of a revolutionary situation, and sufficiently flexible to steer clear of all submerged rocks in the path to its goal. Without such a party, it is useless even to think of overthrowing imperialism, of achieving the dictatorship of the proletariat. This new party is the party of Leninism. What are the specific features of this new party? 1. The party is the advanced attachment of the working class. The party must be, first of all, the advanced detachment of the working class. And notice that advance here is in italics, which means, unlike the wrongful opinion of these mecha in. Oh yeah, I'm not allowed to use that word on fucking stream technically. Okay, instead of these goddamn these bogus communists, that's what we'll call them. I'm not allowed to say the mecha word, so we'll say bogus communists. So, unlike what these bogus communists who want to preserve the American colonial genocidal project think, you can't actually tail reactionary bourgeois ideas, but you actually have to stand at the lead of the working class movement. You have to be the expression of the advanced detachment of the working class. Not just the working class as some like monolith, right? That doesn't mean we of course want to rally all of the working class behind that leadership, but we understand that you can't just do that without qualifying people, right? That's why like a bad look for a party, a communist party, really is to just let anybody in without any sort of process at all, right? Is a good warning sign of that. The party must absorb all the best elements of the working class, their experience, their revolutionary spirit, their selfless devotion to the cause of the proletariat. But in order that they may really be the armed detachment, the party must be armed with revolutionary theory, with a knowledge of the laws of the movement, with a knowledge of the laws of revolution. Without this, it will be incapable of directing the struggle of the proletariat, of leading the proletariat. The party cannot be a real party if it limits itself to registering what the masses of the working class feel and think, if it drags at the tail of the spontaneous movement, if it is unable to overcome the inertia and the political indifference of the spontaneous movement. If it is unable to rise above the momentary interests of the proletariat, if it is unable to raise the masses to the level of understanding the class interests of the proletariat, the party must stand at the head of the working class. It must see further than the working class. It must lead the proletariat, and not drag at the tail of spontaneous movements. The parties of the Second International, which preach Kotvism, are vehicles of bourgeois policy, which condemns the proletariat to the role of a tool in the hands of the bourgeoisie. Only a party which adopts the standpoint of advanced detachment of the proletariat and is able to raise the masses to the level of understanding the class interests of the proletariat. Only such a party can divert the working class from the path of trade unionism and convert it into an independent political force. For us, warriors are not what you think of as warriors. The warrior is not someone who fights because no one has the right to take another life. The warrior for us is one who sacrifices himself for the good of others. His task is to take care of the elderly, the defenseless, those who cannot provide for themselves, and above all, the children, the future of humanity. Nice quote, Sue. Thank you for sharing. The party is the political leader of the working class. I have already spoken of the difficulties of the struggle of the working class, of the complicated conditions of the struggle, strategy and tactics, of reserves and maneuvering, of attack and retreat. These conditions are no less complicated, if not more so, than the conditions of war. Who can see clearly in these conditions? Who can give correct guidance to the proletarian millions? No army at war can dispense with an experienced general staff if it does not want to be doomed to defeat. Is it not clear that the proletariat can still less dispense with such a general staff if it does not want to allow itself to be devoured by its mortal enemies? But where is this general staff? Only the Revolutionary Party of the Proletariat can serve as this general staff. The working class without a revolutionary party is an army without a general staff. The party is the general staff of the proletariat. But the party cannot be only an advanced detachment. It must be at the same time be the detachment of the class, part of the class, closely bound up with it by all the fibers of its being. The distinction between the advanced detachment and the rest of the working class, between party members and non-party people, cannot disappear until classes disappear. It will exist as long as the ranks of the proletariat continue to be replenished with former members of other classes. As long as the working class as a whole is not in a position to rise to the level of the advanced detachment. But the party would cease to be a party if this distinction developed into a gap. If the party turned in on itself and became divorced from the non-party masses. The party cannot lead the class if it is not connected with the non-party masses. If there is no bond between the party and the non-party masses, if these masses do not accept its leadership, if the party enjoys no moral and political credit among the masses. And how are you going to win the moral support and credit among the masses if you are against certain people's liberation? If you're against independence for some, that will never actually materialize the required unity for you to overthrow capitalism and imperialism. Because as I always point out, the struggle for independence and the struggle for liberation is the thing that's in the interest of everybody. And the struggle against that is the thing that is only in the interests of the bourgeoisie. That's why we don't have to worry. These bogus communists can never win. That does not mean that we ignore the struggle against them, but it does mean that they cannot win. Recently, 200,000 new members from the ranks of the workers were admitted into our party. The remarkable thing about this is the fact that these people did not merely join the party themselves, but were rather sent there by all the rest of the non-party workers, who took an active part in the admission of the new members, and without whose approval no new member was accepted. This fact shows that the broad masses of the non-party workers regard our party as their party, as a party near and dear to them, in whose expansion and consolidation they are vitally interested, and to whose leadership they voluntarily entrust their destiny. It scarcely needs proof that without these intangible moral threads which connect the party with the non-party masses, the party could not have become a decisive force of its class. The party is an inseparable part of the working class. We, says Lenin, are part of the class, and therefore almost the whole class, and in times of war, in the period of civil war, the whole class. Should act under the leadership of our party, should adhere to our party as closely as possible. But it would be monopolism and Kotvism to think that at any time under capitalism, almost the whole class, or the whole class, would be able to rise to the level of consciousness and activity of the advanced detachment of its Social Democratic Party. Hey Kay, good morning. Shout out for Kay if there's any mods available, please. No sensible social democrat has ever yet doubted that under capitalism, even the trade union organizations, which are more primitive and more comprehensible to the undeveloped strata, are unable to embrace almost the whole or the whole working class. To forget the distinction between the advanced detachment and the whole of the masses which gravitate towards it, to forget the constant duty of the advanced detachment to raise ever wider strata to this most advanced level, means merely to deceive oneself, to shut one's eyes to the immensity of our tasks and to narrow down these tasks. Lenin. Welcome in, Kay. Everybody give Kay a shout out. Another place where you can go and get your learnings in. You go to Kay's and Kay will give you your book learnings. You don't even have to self-learn yourself. You just go to Kay's and she'll give you the book learning. Straight up. Alright, so the second feature of the working class party. Number 2. The party is the organized detachment of the working class. The party is not only the advanced detachment of the working class. If it desires really to direct the struggle of the class, it must at the same time be the organized detachment of its class. The party's tasks under the conditions of capitalism are immense and extremely varied. The party must direct the struggle of the proletariat under the exceptionally difficult conditions of internal and external development. It must lead the proletariat in the offensive when the situation calls for an offensive. It must lead the proletariat so as to escape the blow of a powerful enemy when the situation calls for retreat. It must imbue the millions of unorganized non-party workers with the spirit of organization and endurance. But the party can fulfill these tasks only if it is in self the embodiment of discipline and organization, if it is itself the organized detachment of the proletariat. Without these conditions, there can be no question of the party really leading the vast masses of the proletariat. The party is the organized detachment of the working class. Welcome in, Sam. The conception of the party as an organized whole is embodied in Lenin's well-known formulation of the first paragraph of our party rules, in which the party is regarded as the sum total of its organizations and the party member as a member of one of the organizations of the
To
party.
say that socialism doesn't work is to overlook the fact that it did work, and it worked for hundreds of millions of people.
The Mensheviks, who objected to this formation as early as 1903, proposed a substitute for it, a system of self-enrollment in the party, a system of conferring the title of party member upon every professor and high school student, upon every sympathizer and striker who supported the party in one way or another, but who did not join and did not want to join any one of the party organizations. It scarcely needs proof that had this singular system become entrenched in our party, it would inevitably have led to our party becoming inundated with professors and high school students, and to its generation into a loose, amorphous, disorganized formation, lost in a sea of sympathizers. Sound like anyone's strategy, by the way? just wondering. That would have obliterated the dividing line between the party and the class, and would have upset the party's task of raising the unorganized masses to the level of the advanced detachment. Needless to say, under such an opportunist system, our party would have been unable to fulfill the role of organizing core of the working class in the course of our revolution. Again, does this sound like any institute? Perhaps a Western and Mid Institute? AI now, Cinnamon, has been translating the Stalin speeches into English, so that like when you listen to it, it's like it like redoes Stalin's voice as if he's saying the speeches in English, which is it's interesting. I know for sure there's the one like right on the eve of war that he gives is done. We'll look that up sometime. Yeah, they're interesting. It's neat. It is kind of neat to hear like his, because it does very much sound like his voice, you know. There's a decent one by Stalin gave to CPUSA crit them, yeah. Yeah, we'll have to play one for sure, for sure. We definitely will at some point, obviously. From the point of view of Comrade Martov, says Lenin, the borderline of the party remains quite indefinite. For every striker may proclaim himself a party member. What is the use of this vagueness? A wide extension of the title. Its harm is that it introduces a disorganizing idea, the confusing of class and party. But the party is not merely the sum total of party organizations. The party is, at the same time, a single system of these organizations. The formal union into a single whole, with higher and lower leading bodies, with subordination of the minority to the majority, with practical decisions binding on all members of the party. Without these conditions, the party cannot be organized, cannot be single organized, whole capable of exercising systematic and organized leadership in the struggle of the working class. But Forte, welcome in, comrade. Formally, says Lenin, our party was not a formally organized whole, but only the sum of separate groups, and therefore no other relations except those of ideological influence were possible between these groups. Now, we have become an organized party, and this implies the establishment of authority, the transformation of the power of ideas into the power of authority, the subordination of lower party bodies into higher party bodies. Thank you so much, Unelectable. Welcome in, welcome in. Hey, Alexion, welcome in too. Great to see you here, comrade. I got that song that you private messaged me the other day, the Kim Jong-un one. that went viral. We're going to listen to that today. And not only are we going to listen to it today, but I also have I have like a little short DPRK documentary to go along with it. So, and thank you so much, Matt, for the raid. Welcome in, raiders. Please get comfortable. We're just here reading Stalin, History and Critique of a Black Legend. Wait, no, we're reading actual Stalin work this day. The joint works. We're actually reading Foundations of Leninism. I didn't mean to lie to you. I'm sorry. I really did not mean to do that. We already read History and Critique of a Black Legend. This is Foundations of Leninism, written by Stalin himself. So, yeah, that's the one. If you need a link, that's it right there. I also have it pinned at the top of the screen. We're on a quick little ad break real fast, so Larry is just gonna grab a drink. I need something to wet the old whistle.
I've got some literature in my car that will change your
I
whole
need
way
to go
of thinking.
finish that.
Well, you're in luck. You're in luck, Matt. If you need to finish this read, I'll read it. I'm pinning all of the reads onto my YouTube and my Twitch. So if you ever get too lazy to read it yourself and you just want me to read it to you, they're there. Thanks so much for the resub. Very much appreciate that. Let's see the Juche Gang emotes. All right, let me get a drink. 1 sec. 1 second. Literally super quick. It's super fast.
Long live the People's Revolution!
Long live.
I would have been friends with Stalin.
Yeah, Stalin could. Yeah, I would be hanging out with Stalin. Have a little bit of a.
He's a communist.
Hype.
Oh, really? Yep. Big communist. Big communist. Oh.
Oh boy, there's a nice, interesting thing coming up here. Okay. All right. We get 25 seconds, and then I'll continue my read. Let me have another sip of this here drink. Oh yes, delicious. All right, let us continue. The principle of the minority submitting to the majority. The principle of directing party work from a center. Not infrequently gives rise to attacks on the part of the wavering elements. So accusations of bureaucracy, formalism, etc. It scarcely needs proof that systematic work by the party as one whole and the directing of the struggle of the working class would be impossible without putting these principles into effect. Now today we might not hear these words so much, but what you might hear is words like echo chamber or or like authoritarian, right? That's the favorite one now. Instead of bureaucracy, you'll hear it say like the party or your organization is acting authoritarian and that you're an echo chamber, right? It's like struggling against opportunism is not creating an echo chamber. It's also not creating division. Struggling against opportunism is actually the necessary step to achieving unity, right? Purity fetish. Yep. You hear that one? Purity fetish. Thank you, lesbian hot sauce. Welcome in. Yeah, definitely purity fetish would be included in this as well. And the thing is, like, it's not about purity fetish. It's again that we want to create a party, right? Like that's the goal of what we're doing here. Because otherwise, what are you pushing them into? Spontaneous action? What fucking good is that? You know? So what we want to do in trying to create a party or improve parties that already exist, of course, is have the advanced detachment of the working class, right? Which means you want to be the advance. You want to be the force that's capable of raising the masses up to the position of the revolutionaries in the course of the struggle for revolution. If your party is incapable of doing that, if your party is too busy tailing behind bourgeois ideas like fucking mega communism or something like this, then you're never gonna do that. You're never gonna achieve that. You're always gonna be tailing the movements and tailing these spontaneous things that arise, right? We don't worship spontaneity. Spontaneity is the result of there being no leadership. Wait, so you can't do you do have to grow. Yeah, people do have to grow. I know, it's hard. I don't know how we fight. Well, we fight it just like we are now, lesbian hotshots. We call it out. We isolate them. We try and keep them out of our movement. We set the defining line so that people can see that these people claiming to be communists are not communists. And like I say, because our ideas actually do champion the interests of everybody, and their interests do not, they will never be able to gain the necessary unity possible to actually build a revolutionary movement, right? At the end of the day, they will falter. And the funniest part about it, of course, is they are making the same mistake that communist parties in the West have made for fucking decades, right? Like, and the funny thing is that they think they're doing something new. But at this, it's like they have this doublespeak because they, at the same time they're framing it as them doing something new, they're also saying at the like out of the other side of their mouth that they're trying to restore the glory of what Communist Party USA was in its heyday when it was about to win the hearts and minds of the people. It's like, what fucking world do you live in where that almost happened? Are you joking? Like it, yeah, it might have had more members at some time, but it never really, it was never really like even as threatening to capitalism as like the communists were in Germany. And to be clear, like the communists in Germany that led to basically the rise of, or like help encourage the rise of Hitler, weren't like, they weren't even that much of a threat to the system itself, right? And Communist Party USA, even less so. Even less so. It like, so yeah, it's just something funny that like they on one hand pretend like they're coming up with this like brand new strategy that has never been used before, but at the same time they're restoring the old strategy of Communist Party USA and such. Like I said, the main point is that they're not going to be able to gain the support because, of course, there's like, it's like this, they fight for independence, except, you know, there's this but, there's this exception that is not going to be, will never be accepted by all. The independence of everyone is in the interest of everybody. Purity fetish is such a silly dismissal. When there's not food in the food and I want to eat food, I need the not food out. Yeah, purity, exactly. Thank you. Yes, it really is as simple as that. When I like to get my family in the house so I can put them to bed, I specifically want my kids in their home and other folks' kids outside of our home. Unless there's a slumber party, I'm not a monster. Oh no, purity again. If I get my paycheck and part of my wages comes in pizza parties or awards to tape up my cubicle instead of my fucking money, purity. Yeah, exactly. It's like there's nothing wrong if we're communists and we're revolutionaries. We absolutely should just disregard that bullshit purity fetish fucking echo chamber bullshit. Of course. Are we trying to have a correct strategy of revolution or not? You know, guess what? That's gonna require that we like really buckle down and understand it. And that means that we can't just leave like certain questions unanswered. That just leads you to confusion and into the potential to have the revolution lose its way, lose its bearings, right? You don't want that. Stalin literally said that in the last chapter. Alright, I'll continue. The principle of the I read this. Okay, it's right here. It scarcely needs proof that systematic work by the party as one whole and the directing of the struggle of the working class would be impossible without putting these principles into effect. Leninism, in questions of organization, is the unwavering application of these principles. Lenin terms the fight against these principles Russian nihilism and aristocratic anarchism, which deserves to be ridiculed and swept aside. Huh? Right? You see? See what I'm saying about isolate them, sweep them aside? It's very similar ideas. Quote, this is from Lenin. This aristocratic anarchism is particularly characteristic of the Russian nihilist. He thinks that the party organization is a monstrous factory. He regards the subordination of the part to the whole and of the minority to the majority of serfdom. Division of labor under the direction of the center evokes from him a tragic comical outcry against people being transformed into wheels and cogs. Mention of the organizational rules of the party calls forth a contemptuous grimace and the disdainful remark that one could very well disperse with rules altogether. It is clear, I think, that the cries about the celebrated bureaucracy are just a screen for dissatisfaction with the personal composition of the central bodies, a fig leaf. You are a bureaucrat because you were appointed by the Congress, not by my will, but against it. You are a formalist because you rely on the formal decisions of the Congress, and not on my consent. You are acting in a grossly mechanical way because you plead the mechanical majority at the party Congress and pay no heed to my wish to be co-opted. You are an aristocrat because you refuse to hand over the power to the old gang. 3. The party is the highest form of class organization of the proletariat. The party is the organized detachment of the working class. But the party is not the only organization of the working class. The proletariat has also a number of other organizations, without which it cannot wage a successful struggle against capital. Trade unions, cooperatives, factory organizations, parliamentary groups, non-party women's associations, the press, cultural and educational organizations, youth leagues, revolutionary fighting organizations, in times of open revolutionary action, Soviets of deputies as the form of state organization if the proletariat is in power, etc. The overwhelming majority of these organizations are non-party, and only some of them adhere directly to the party or constitute offshoots from it. Remember, as I always like to point out to you, comrades, don't let this false comparison to parliamentarism or elections in a socialist country and have them compare it to elections and representative politics in like DPRK or whatever socialist country. Don't let them make that false comparison, right? That's what they do to DPRK and any other country. They'll be like, look at how many seats the WPK has. Clearly, they don't have democracy or it's a sham democracy. But the thing about that is that actually in these places, Unlike in the US, where whatever party wins the election essentially takes direct hold of state organs. Although there could be all these little like hoops that make it more covert, it essentially takes direct hold of all state organs, with the president literally appointing all of these different positions, right? And in contrast to that, in a socialist society, actually all party organs, including the leading Workers' Party itself, does not have direct hold of state organs, which is why we talk about the principle of voluntariness, right? That actually the way that the party leads and the way that the party affects leadership in non-party organizations and other state bodies is by their party members going and working in those bodies, and no doubt being influential because people are familiar with the party's program and things like this. So it's because these party members go within these state organs, they try and get elected to them, and they try and teach everybody to draw nearer to the leadership of that party voluntarily, of their own accord. Which is why, at the same time, when revolution like DPRK has gone on for 75 years, you get this militant unity, right? That Westerners just literally cannot understand. It's like they see the way the people there support their government and stuff like that, and it's just totally incomprehensible to them because they're not used to having a party that has served their interests for 70 years, 80 years, right? The result of that is gradually over time, the people more and more people come to support that party until it becomes this like invincible party type thing, like what WPK is basically today, or the CPC, right? Hey, Radisby, welcome in, and welcome in to you as well, Neuro Riot. Love to see you. So hopefully that makes sense to you. All these organizations, and welcome in Mama and Media. Shout out to Mama and Media if we didn't get one already, please. Make sure you're following her. UJ Gang orders. All these organizations, under certain conditions, are absolutely necessary for the working class. For without them, it would be impossible to consolidate the class positions of the proletariat in the diverse spheres of struggle. For without them, it would be impossible to steel the proletariat as the force whose mission it is to replace the bourgeois order by the socialist order. But how can single leadership be exercised with such an abundance of organizations? What guarantee is there that the multiplicity of organizations will not lead to divergency in leadership? It may be said that each of these organizations carries on its work in its own special field, and that therefore these organizations cannot hinder one another. That, of course, is true, but it is also true that all these organizations should work in one direction, for they serve one class, the class of the proletarians. The question then arises, who is to determine the line, the general direction, along which the work of these organizations is to be conducted? Where is the central organizations, which is not only able, because it has the necessary experience to work out such a general line, but in addition is in a position, because it has sufficient prestige, as I just talked about, to induce all these organizations to carry out this line, so as to attain unity of leadership and to make hitches impossible. That organization is the Party of the Proletariat. And here he's going to talk, I think, a little bit more about what I was just talking about, actually. The party possesses all the necessary qualifications for this, because, in the first place, it is the rallying center of the finest elements in the working class, who have direct connections with non-party organizations of the proletariat, and very frequently lead them. Because, secondly, the party, as the rallying center of the finest members of the working class, is the best school for training leaders of the working class, capable of directing every form of organization of their class. Because, Thirdly, the party, as the best school for training leaders of the working class, is, by reason of its experience and prestige, the only organization capable of centralizing the leadership of the struggle of the proletariat, thus transforming each and every non-party organization of the working class into an auxiliary body and transmission belt, linking the party with the class. And here comes the important part that I mentioned, okay? The party is the highest form of class organization of the proletariat. This does not mean, of course, that non-party organizations, trade unions, cooperatives, etc., should be officially subordinated to party leadership. As I just mentioned, it only means that the members of the party who belong to these organizations and are doubtlessly influential in them should do all they can to persuade these non-party organizations to draw nearer to the party of the proletariat in their work and voluntarily accept its political leadership. That is why Lenin says that the party is the highest form of proletarian class association, whose political leadership must extend to every other form of organization of the proletariat. So you see what I'm saying here? You see how I'm saying? You see why I say it's so important for us to make it clear that you can't compare our elections to bourgeois parliamentarism, socialist elections, and socialist democracy, right? Because at the end of the day, it's a completely different relationship between the party and the state organs. And notice the very important word that he uses right here as well. This word. He uses the word persuade. Because, to paraphrase Kim Jong-il, of course, the leader, the working class party, the leader of the revolution, cannot lead by commands and decrees, right? Such a thing will never actually unify people and turn them into socialists. The only way to turn them into socialists is through persuasion and to have them voluntarily accept it as their own. It must come from the people. That is exactly what that means, yes. That is why the opportunist theory of independence and neutrality of the non-party organization, which breeds independent members of parliament and journalists isolated from the party, narrow-minded trade union leaders, and Philistine cooperative officials, is wholly incompatible with the theory and practice of Leninism. And in fact would represent a type of class collaboration, right? 4. The party is an instrument of the dictatorship of the proletariat. The party is the highest form of organization of the proletariat. The party is the principal guiding force within the class of the proletarians and among the organization of that class. But it does not mean by any means that from this that the party can be regarded as an end in itself, as a self-sufficient force. The party is not only the highest form of class association of the proletarians, it is at the same time an instrument in the hands of the proletariat for achieving the dictatorship, when that has not yet been achieved, and for consolidating and expanding the dictatorship when it has already been achieved. The party could not have risen so high in importance and could not have exerted its influence over all other forms of organizations of the proletariat if the latter had not been confronted with the question of power. If the conditions of imperialism, the inevitability of wars, and the existence of a crisis had not yet demanded the concentration of all the forces of the proletariat at one point, the gathering of all the threads of the revolutionary movement in one spot, in order to overthrow the bourgeoisie and to achieve the dictatorship of the proletariat. The proletariat needs the party first of all as its general staff, which it must have for the successful seizure of power. It scarcely needs proof that, without a party capable of rallying around itself the mass organizations of the proletariat, and of centralizing the leadership of the entire movement during the progress of the struggle, The proletariat in Russia could not have established its revolutionary dictatorship. But the proletariat needs the party not only to achieve dictatorship, it needs it still more to maintain the dictatorship, to consolidate and expand it in order to achieve the complete victory of socialism. Certainly, almost everyone now realizes, says Lenin, that Bolsheviks could not have maintained themselves in power for 2.5 months, let alone 2.5 years, without the strictest, truly iron discipline of our party, and without the fullest and unreserved support of the latter by the whole mass of the working class. That is, by all its thinking, honest, self-sacrificing, and influential elements. Notice this part again? Notice how, again, he doesn't take it as just this monolith. Notice how when he says the working class, he then goes on to qualify what he means, right? That the working class, that is, by all the thinking, honest, self-sacrificing, and influential elements capable of leading or carrying with them the backward strata. Now, do you think tailing the ideas that are designed to keep those sections in their position of backwards reactionary positions and thinking, do you think that tailing those ideas is going to somehow raise them to the level of revolutionary? Of course not, right? If anything, it will just solidify themselves in their own misunderstandings. Like, imagine thinking, like, mega communism is like the perfect example, right? Like, instead of actually creatively coming up with a new slogan that actually reflects the interests of the working class, you try and adopt a bourgeois slogan that is reflective of tailing this, right? And it's a slogan that literally exists to perpetrate like this reactionary ideas. It's like, are you going to raise those people up with that by using the same slogan that they're already indoctrinated by? No. It's showing your laziness and uncreativeness, unwillingness to put in any kind of serious work, right? Just like how their strategy, if you remember, actually their strategy still is to take hold of the CPUSA, which is like, I mean, have you read their fucking program? Anyway. Now, what does to maintain and expand the dictatorship mean? It means imbuing the millions of proletarians with the spirit and discipline and organization. It means creating among the proletarian masses a cementing force and bulwark against the corrosive influence of the petty bourgeois elemental forces and petty bourgeois habits. It means enhancing the organizing work of the proletarians in re-educating and remolding the petty bourgeois strata. It means helping the masses of the proletarians to educate themselves as a force capable of abolishing classes and of preparing the conditions for the organization of socialist production. But it is impossible to accomplish all of this without a party which is strong by reason of its solidarity and discipline. The dictatorship of the proletariat, says Lenin, is a stubborn struggle, bloody and bloodless, violent and peaceful, military and economic, educational and administrative, against the forces of traditions of the old society. The force of habit of millions and tens of millions is a most terrible force. Without an iron party tempered in the struggle, without a party enjoying the confidence of all that is honest in a given class, without a party capable of watching and influencing the mood of the masses, it is impossible to conduct strategy successfully. Lenin. The proletariat needs a party for the purpose of achieving and maintaining the dictatorship. The party is an instrument of the dictatorship of the proletariat. But From this, it follows that when classes disappear and the dictatorship of the proletariat withers away, the party also will wither away. Now, I do invite you to go look at my reading of Historical Lessons of Socialism and the General Line of Our Party for, I think, what is an updated analysis of exactly this point here that he just made. But of course, that is much later in the building of communism and socialism, so it's understandable. But check it out. It's, I think, the first read that I ever did in my reading playlist anyway. Before we get to number 5. Like, I think if we go here and where is it? Playlists, live readings. Yeah. I think my first one is it, right? Oh no. No, it's right here. Sorry, it's down here. Number 48 with this one from 2 months ago. On the historical lesson of building socialism by Kim Jong-il. Really says about the need for sort of the party to continue because its mission transforms into one of serving the people. And so it changes over the course of revolution as well. Not that it is not always also a weapon for destroying the class, but at the same time, in order to steal its weapon, it must better and better serve the people. That itself becomes a weapon against the people who are enemies of the people, right? They don't want to serve the people. Of course, eventually that reveals the enemies. That's what DPRK has learned, right? That the more militantly you set up your party to serve the people, the more and more the fucking revisionists and those anti-socialist and anti-counter-revolutionary elements will reveal themselves. Nice, mama. That's one I've never played. The party as the embodiment of unity of will. Unity incompatible with the existence of factions. The achievement and maintenance of the dictatorship of the proletariat is impossible without a party which is strong by reason of its solidarity and iron discipline. But iron discipline in the party is inconceivable without unity of will, without complete and absolute unity of action on the part of all members of the party. This does not mean, of course, that the possibility of conflicts of opinion within the party is thereby precluded. On the contrary, iron discipline does not preclude but presupposes criticism and conflict of opinion within the party. Least of all does it mean that discipline must be blind. On the contrary, iron discipline does not preclude but presupposes conscious and voluntary submission. For only conscious discipline can be exhausted, and a decision has been arrived at. Unity of will and unity of action of all party members are the necessary conditions, without which neither party unity nor iron discipline in the party is conceivable. In the present epoch of acute civil war, says Lenin, the Communist Party will be able to perform its duty only if it is organized in the most centralized manner, if iron discipline bordering on military discipline prevails in it, if its party center is a powerful and authoritative organ, wielding wide powers and enjoying the universal confidence of the members of the party. This is the position in regards to discipline in the party in the period of struggle preceding the achievement of the dictatorship. The same, but to an even greater degree, must be said about discipline in the party after dictatorship has been achieved. Whoever, says Lenin, weakens in the least the iron discipline of the party of the proletariat, especially during the time of its dictatorship, actually aids the bourgeoisie against the proletariat. But from this, it follows that the existence of factions is compatible neither with the party's unity nor with its iron discipline. It scarcely needs proof that the existence of factions leads to the existence of a number of centers, and the existence of a number of centers means the absence of one common center in the party, the breaking up of unity of will, the weakening and the disintegration of discipline, the weakening and disintegration of dictatorship. Of course, the parties of the Second International, which are fighting against the dictatorship of the proletariat and have no desire to lead the proletarians to power, can afford such liberalism as freedom of factions, for they have no need at all for iron discipline. But the parties of the Communist International, whose activities are conditioned by the task of achieving and consolidating the dictatorship of the proletariat, cannot afford to be liberal or permit freedom of factions. The party represents unity of will, which precludes all factionalism and division of authority in the party. Go join another party. Hence Lenin's warnings about the danger of factionalism from the point of view of party unity and of affecting the unity of will of the vanguard of the proletariat as the fundamental condition for the success of the dictatorship of the proletariat, which is embodied in the special resolution of the 10th Congress of our party on party unity. Hence Lenin's demand for the complete elimination of all factionalism and the immediate dissolution of all groups without exception that have been formed on the basis of various platforms, on pain of unconditional and immediate expulsion from the party. Again, you want to be in a faction, go join another party. Go make another party. It's like them clowns that say white people brag us natives beads while we had beads before in 1492, or that because we didn't believe or accept European ideal land property, that we didn't have land ownership. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, Sue, the funny thing is there's still, of course, there's still lots of people fooled by that. But it's really similar, of course, to the charges that they level against socialist property, right? That because we are for the abolition of capitalist private quote unquote property, therefore we're the elimination of property in general, which of course is not the case. We are for new property laws. 6. The party becomes strong by purging itself of opportunist elements. Can I say that one again? I think I'm going to say this one again, okay? Because here is the one that here's the one, another one. It's amazing actually. Just reading this work, I'm realizing that every single point when it comes to the party, and okay, look, they might not claim to be a party, but the fact is they act like an educational communist party. That's the way they do act, right? So I think it's kind of funny to be reading this work and realize that literally that Midwestern Marx and the Patzogs and the bogus Marxists literally fail all 6 points. It's kind of stunning, actually. And I think number 6 here, number 6 here really like drives it home. Like this one especially, like bum, 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 like this tells me that this part really tells me when you fall for that nonsense that you didn't really read Stalin, or you're trying to grift people who didn't read Stalin, right? One or the other. To pick a lane. Are you trying to grift people who didn't read Stalin, or did you just not read Stalin yourself? Seems like having a correct party is important. Yeah, and like actually being revolutionary. The advanced detachment, as they say. So, number 6 for the characteristics of the party. The party becomes strong by purging itself of opportunist elements. The source of factionalism in the party is its opportunist elements. Proletariat is not an isolated class. It is consistently replenished by the influx of peasants, petty bourgeois, and intellectuals, proletarianized by the development of capitalism. At the same time, the upper stratum of the proletariat, principally trade union leaders and members of the proletariat who are fed by the bourgeoisie out of the super profits extracted from the colonies, is undergoing a process of decay. Pay attention to this part. In fact, I'm going to say this part one more time because you have to and I want you to consider that what he's talking about here is Russia, right? 19 fucking tens. Think about this. From like 1905 to 1920s, let's say. Let's give it a window, right? He's talking about 1905 to like fucking to like 1920s, right? Think about that. Think about, therefore, now in 2024, how much more advanced this is in the USA and Canada. Those stratum of the proletariat that are bribed by the bourgeoisie out of super profits extracted from their colonies. How much larger do you think that labor aristocracy is in the USA compared to somewhere like Russia in 1920, right? Probably a lot larger. Wouldn't you imagine? Like, just pure logic. And I think really the proof is in the pudding. You just have to look at the communist parties around here and all these various sects that come out like Patsock and realize that this is absolutely evidence of this, right? So, at the same time, the upper stratum of the proletariat, principally, this part we can almost ignore for us, but the principally trade union leaders, but no, principally the members of the proletariat who are fed by the bourgeoisie out of the super profits extracted from the colonies. Bop coded is undergoing a process of decay. I woke Bop up with that one. Bop's belly felt real good all of a sudden. Sex? This stratum of bourgeoisified workers, or the labor aristocracy, says Lenin, who are quite Philistine in their mode of life, in the size of their earnings, and in their entire outlook, is not the principal prop of the Second International, and in our days, the principal social prop of the bourgeoisie. For they are real agents of the bourgeoisie in the working class movement. The labor lieutenants of the capitalist class. Ooh. Real channels of reformism and chauvinism. Ooh. Oh. I vote this one. I vote we start using this one. Let's do it. Come on. Yeah, I want you all to help me with this, okay? From now on, we're going to start referring to them as labor lieutenants of the capitalist class. That is fucking beautiful. I fucking love that. I'm writing that down. They are fucking labor lieutenants of the capitalist class. That is fucking gorgeous. I'm tweeting that today. I love that. I love that. Labor lieutenants of the capitalist class. That's fucking a perfect description for them. In one way or another, all these petty bourgeois groups penetrate into the party and introduce it, the spirit of hesitancy and opportunism, the spirit of demoralization and uncertainty. It is they, principally, that constitute the source of factionalism and disintegration, the source of disorganization and disruption of the party from within. To fight caught between two fires, from the front and from the rear. Therefore, ruthless struggle against such elements, their expulsion from the party, is a prerequisite for the successful struggle against imperialism. Think about that. Just think about that. The theory of defeating opportunist elements by the ideological struggle within the party. The theory of overcoming these elements within the confines of a single party is a rotten and dangerous theory. It's almost like Larry has already done this reading or something, huh? What have I been telling everybody all the fuck along? Anyway, I don't want to get into the, which threatens to condemn the party to paralysis and chronic infirmity. Threatens to leave the party a prey to opportunism. Threatens to leave the party without a revolutionary party. Threatens to leave the proletariat without a revolutionary party. Threatens to deprive the proletariat of its main weapon in the fight against imperialism. So this is what these opportunists like Midwestern Marx are trying to do. Deprive the proletariat of its weapon. And then they want us to ideologically struggle with them by going in their Discord and having conversations with them and all this other shit. No, we fucking call out their shit and we isolate them from our movement. Which is why you see when Noah's trying to engage me into a conversation, the most I will do is use what he says to demonstrate, look at this bullshit. This is what opportunism looks like. Without actually, really responding directly to him. Because such a thing would be a mistake. Because what then? He would respond to me, and then I would respond to him, and it would be a waste of both of our times. Our party could not have emerged onto the broad highway. It could not have seized power and organized the dictatorship of the proletariat. It could not have emerged victorious from the Civil War if it had within its ranks people like Martov and Dan, Potrazov and Axelrod. Our party succeeded in achieving internal unity and unexampled cohesion of its ranks primarily because it was able to, in good time, purge itself of the opportunist pollution. Because it was able to rid its ranks of the liquidators and Mensheviks. Proletarian parties develop and become strong by purging themselves of opportunists and reformists, social imperialists and social chauvinists, social patriots and social pacifists. Anyone else want to tell me to read Lenin or Stalin? I'm just kidding. Where is this energy for the labor lieutenants at the capitalist class? Yeah. Instead of coming at me, who's trying to prevent you from declaring to basically your whole audience that you are in that camp of the labor lieutenants, instead of coming at me like that, where is that energy for the labor lieutenants of the capitalist class? God damn it. Purge the Mensheviks. Yo, you need to read Lenin and Stalin. Turns out I already did. But I can just go on their show. It's like mainstream media. Yeah, that was the funniest part, trying to gaslight me into trying to say that it was like going on any other media. Like, no, bro, it's not. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I'm not even telling you this for my own benefit. I'm literally telling this to help you avoid putting on the... Do you want to put on clown makeup? Go ahead. But I'm just trying to stop you, right? That's all. That's all I'm trying to do. It makes no difference to me. I just don't listen to people who who go on that shit, you know? As you know, with JT, I still side-eye the fuck out of him, despite the fact that he said, oh, I denounced going on there. Every single video I've seen after that is ridiculous. Everyone who is interested in communism should read Lenin and Stalin to see what didn't work and to not repeat mistakes. Absolutely. I mean, that's literally what they do. I love them Larry versus Sue times. Well, we need a Larry with Sue eventually, soon. Larry and Sue crushing ass hats. But yeah, that is exactly what we do. And NRG, if you wanna look at a good critique of that, an exact example of what you're talking about there. I actually did a reading of Fundamentals of Revolutionary Party Building by Kim Jong-il, who really does a very thorough critique of what went wrong in USSR. And I think
I've
it's
got
one
some
that
literature
everyone...
in my car that will change your whole way of thinking.
Robo Gaming, welcome in. Yeah, hell yeah. That's what we're all about. Crushing them under the weight of our fucking immense tank treads. Hey, Ronaldo, welcome in, welcome in. Thank you so much, Robo. Appreciate your support, comrade. That means a ton to me. This is the last paragraph of this work. Okay, let's finish this up. This is what Lenin says about purging opportunist elements in the party. With reformists, Mensheviks in her ranks, says Lenin, it is impossible to be victorious in the proletarian revolution. It is impossible to defend it. That is obvious in principle. And it has been strikingly confirmed by the experience of both Russia and Hungary. In Russia, difficult situations have arisen many times, when the Soviet regime would most certainly have been overthrown had Mensheviks, reformists, and petty bourgeois Democrats remained in our party. In Italy, where, as is generally admitted, decisive battles between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie for the possession of the state are imminent, at such a moment, it is not only absolutely necessary to remove Mensheviks, reformists, the Turretists from the party, but it may even be useful to remove excellent communists who are liable to waver and who reveal a tendency to waver towards unity with the reformists. To remove them from all responsible posts. Weird, huh? It seems like Lenin would not actually support anything these fucking clown bags talk about. Strange that, isn't it?
Long live the People's Revolution!
He's literally even saying here, it may be even useful to remove excellent communists who are liable to waver. Oh, but anyone else want to cry about purity fetish some more? Any more crying about purity fetish out there? Fuck off. You're damn right we want to fucking preserve the purity of the revolutionary ideas of fucking socialism.
Yep.
Yeah, goddamn right we do.
Big communists.
Oh.
It's so funny. Like it's like they try and portray us as like purists, like in the same way. Like no, purity is like what the anarchists do, but their purity fetishism of socialism. What we do isn't purity. It's the necessary steps for achieving unity. You can also type exclamation mark reading, Ernalda. So just type exclamation mark and then reading, all one word, and you will actually get a link to this. On the eve of a revolution, and at a moment when a most fierce struggle is being waged for its victory, the slightest wavering in the ranks of the party may wreck everything. Frustrate the revolution, wrest the power from the hands of the proletariat. For this power is not yet consolidated. The attack upon it is still very strong. The desertion of wavering leaders at such a time does not weaken, but strengthens the party, the working class movement, and the revolution. In other words, see ya, bye-bye. if you're a bogus communist, we don't want you in the like that. We want to isolate you from our movement, right? Purity test always rubs me the wrong way because it's often just a way to dismiss the concerns of minorities who need that purity in these groups the most. Exactly. And not only that, but like purity like is what we need in at least the way that they're using it, right? Like the purity of like revolutionism is in fact required to achieve revolution. Go figure. Like if you abandon revolutionary principles, your revolution goes off the rails. Hard to imagine, I know, but that is the way it works. Liberalism is to socialism as communism is to anarchism. One must be built up upon to the other to get to the progressive step. Yep. Yeah, don't do purity test. Just let the MAGA communists in, I guess. I mean, that was my thing.